Hello everyone, once again welcome to this YouTube channel. So today we are revising about the chronic inflammation, and as in my previous video I already explained the acute inflammation, and if you did not see it then please watch the previous video of the acute inflammation. So let's start about the chronic inflammation. So first question which comes is, what is the hallmark of chronic inflammation? So the hallmark of chronic inflammation is tissue destruction and repair. As in the previous video I already told you about the hallmark of the acute inflammation, and if you don't know then please watch it, and otherwise I will also tell you that the hallmark of acute inflammation is increased vascular permeability. So here the question asks the hallmark of chronic inflammation. So the hallmark of chronic inflammation is tissue destruction and repair. And what were the most important cells involved in the chronic inflammation? So in the chronic inflammation, the most important cell is monocyte and macrophages, but other cells also involved like lymphocytes, plasma cells, monocytes and macrophages. But the most important, here the question asks the most important. So the most important cells is monocytes and macrophages. Basically monocytes were in the blood cells, and if they come into the tissue then they were known as the macrophages. So these two terms were basically one. So monocytes and macrophages were the most important cells involved in the chronic inflammation. So here is one exception, that in the acute inflammation the cells is neutrophils which is involved in the acute inflammation, but here the most important cell in chronic inflammation is monocyte and macrophages. Can anyone please tell me what is the exception of this case in which in the chronic inflammation we see the neutrophils? So in the chronic pseudomonas infection we see the neutrophils. Chronic pseudomonas is a chronic inflammation, but that is one exception in which we see the cell is neutrophils. So now other cells were lymphocytes, plasma cells, monocytes and macrophages. Monocytes and macrophages were the most important cells. After this, now the macrophages, particular in which organ they were known by their particular name. So let's start. In the brain, the macrophages were known as microglia. In the brain, microglia. In the lungs, dust cells, or we can say alveolar macrophage. Dust cell, or we can say alveolar macrophage. And in the liver, the macrophages were called Kupffer cells. Kupffer cells. In the spleen, they were known as littoral cells. And in the kidney, mesangial cells. And in the placenta, we have Hofbauer cells. Hofbauer cells were the macrophages which were present in the placenta. Hofbauer cells. And in the bone, we have osteoclast. In the bone, we have osteoclast. And in the synovium, we have type A synoviocyte. Type A synoviocyte. So these were the macrophages which were known different in their different organs. Like in the brain, microglia. In the brain, we have microglia. In the lungs, dust cells or alveolar macrophages. In the liver, Kupffer cells were present. In the spleen, littoral cells. And in the kidney, mesangial cells. And in the placenta, Hofbauer cells. And in the bone, we have osteoclast. And in the synovium, we have type A synoviocytes. So basically in exam, this question is asked, and this one, that in the macrophage in the placenta is known as Hofbauer cells, and the macrophage in the spleen is known as littoral cells. So this is about the macrophage in the particular organ. After that, what is the granulomatous inflammation? So basically granulomatous inflammation is a type of a chronic inflammation. Granulomatous inflammation is a type of chronic inflammation. Remember that granulomatous inflammation is a chronic inflammation. And what do you know about the granuloma? So basically this is a structure of the granuloma. In the granuloma, what we see, that these were the collar of the lymphocytes. These were the collar of lymphocytes. And if it is absent, then we call that naked granuloma. But here these were present. The color of the lymphocyte is present, so it is granuloma. And if they are absent, then it is naked granuloma, which were seen in the sarcoidosis. Okay, and these were the macrophages. These were the macrophages. And if the this is the multinucleated giant cell, multinucleated giant cells. They are basically the fusion of the macrophages. So they were basically fusion of macrophages. If many macrophages were fused, then they were known as multinucleated giant cell. Remember it, multinucleated giant cells. Okay, and then in the center we see there is necrosis. So this one is the necrosis. Caseous necrosis. They were caseating and non-caseating granulomas. So caseous necrosis is of two types, that were caseating granuloma and non-caseating granuloma. Non-caseating granuloma. And these were the epithelioid cells. Epithelioid cells, and epithelioid cells were basically the modified macrophages. So these were the modified macrophages. Modified macrophages were known as epithelioid cells. So epithelioid cells were the modified macrophages, and they were the most important cell of a granuloma. So these were the most important, epithelioid cells were the most important cell of a granuloma. Remember it. So in the granuloma, which cell is most important? Epithelioid cells. And epithelioid cells are basically the modified macrophages. And we have multinucleated giant cells, macrophages, caseous necrosis is going on in the center, and we have epithelioid cells. So this is the granuloma. There is outside, in the periphery, there is a collar of the lymphocytes, and in the center there is caseous necrosis. In the center there is caseous necrosis. In the periphery there is collar of lymphocytes. And these were the most important cells in the granuloma were epithelioid cells, which were known as modified macrophages. So I hope you understand it very clearly about the granuloma. Now let's study about the multinucleated giant cells, different type of multinucleated giant cells. So type of the giant cells. So first type is the Langerhans giant cells. Langerhans giant cells were seen as the horseshoe shaped. As we see, this is the horseshoe shaped, like so. As in the microscopic picture, we see it clearly that this is a horseshoe shaped. So this is Langerhans giant cells, and the example is TB. So the example of Langerhans giant cell is TB. Second type of giant cell is the Touton giant cells, and the example is xanthoma. So Touton giant cells is seen like this, like arrangement is like wreath-like arrangement. So the arrangement is wreath-like arrangement. As we see in this microscopic picture, there is a example of Touton giant cell is the xanthoma, and we see there it is a wreath-like arrangement of the cells. So this is the Touton giant cells. And after that we have third giant cell, that were the foreign body giant cells. In the foreign body giant cell, there is haphazard arrangement of the nuclei. As we see in this microscopic picture clearly, there is a haphazard arrangement of the nuclei. So this is known as the foreign body giant cells. And we have fourth type of giant cells, that is Warthin-Finkelday giant cells. And the Warthin-Finkelday giant cells were seen in the measles-Finkelday giant cells. Example is measles, and the examples of foreign body giant cell is suture and tail. So foreign body giant cells, Warthin-Finkelday giant cells, Touton giant cells, and Langerhans giant cells. So after that, fifth type of giant cell is the tumor giant cells, in which we see the owl-eye appearance, and which is basically seen in the Reed-Sternberg cells. Example is Hodgkin lymphoma. Hodgkin lymphoma. And owl eye appearance is also seen in cytomegalovirus. Here I wrote about it, that owl eye is seen in the Reed-Sternberg cells and the cytomegalovirus. As we see in the microscopic picture, it looks like an owl eye appearance. So it is owl eye appearance, which is the example of owl eye appearance is Hodgkin lymphoma, which is a type of a tumor giant cell. So these are the 5 types of giant cells. First one is the Langerhans giant cells, which looks like a horseshoe shaped, and the example is TB. Second one is the Teuton giant cells, and the example of Teuton giant cells is the xanthoma, in which we see the wreath-like arrangement. The third is the foreign body giant cells. The example of foreign body giant cell is the suture and tail, and in this we see the haphazard arrangement of nuclei. Fourth type of giant cell is the Warthin-Finkelday giant cells, and the example of this is the measles. And we see the inclusion bodies in the cells. And after that we have fifth type, that is tumor giant cells, and the example is Reed-Sternberg cells, that is the Reed-Sternberg cells, Hodgkin lymphoma, and the other is cytomegalovirus, which also shows the owl eye appearance. After that we read about the types of the granulomas. As I told about the structure of the granuloma, now we have learned about the types of granulomas. So basically there are 2 types. Those were the infective and non-infective type of granulomas. Let's first study about the infective granuloma. So in infective granuloma we have TB, which shows the caseating granuloma in the center, and it is the most common. It shows both caseating and non-caseating, but most common is the caseating granuloma, which were seen in the TB. And the second example is leprosy. After that, syphilis, malaria, Q fever, cat scratch disease, and lymphogranuloma venereal. So here in the malaria we see the Dirk granuloma. Dirk granuloma, like as we seen in this microscopic picture, there is 2 parallel lines were coming and it is arranged in the parallel form. So these were the Dirk granuloma. The example of this is cerebral malaria. Other example is Q fever, which we can see like how we make Q, that is the donut granuloma. It looks like a donut granuloma. We can easily identify by donut granuloma shape, that is the Q fever. After that we have cat scratch disease and LGV, in which we see the stellate granuloma. As we see here, it is something like star shape. Stellate means star shape, so it is a stellate granuloma. The examples were LGV, and the other one is the cat scratch disease. So remember it, cat scratch disease and LGV shows the stellate granuloma, and this is the drug granuloma remember it by the parallel line forms, and the example is cerebral malaria. So in malaria we see the Dirk granuloma, and in the Q fever we see the donut granuloma, and TB shows the most common is caseating granuloma, while in the sarcoidosis we see the non-caseating granuloma is the most common as compared to the caseating granuloma. So now next one is the non-infective granuloma. In non-infective granuloma we study about basically 3 examples like Crohn's disease, vasculitis, and sarcoidosis, and these were the non-infective forms. And in the non-sarcoidosis we see the non-caseating granuloma most common as compared to the caseating granuloma, as I told already. So in the sarcoidosis, non-caseating granuloma form is more common as compared to caseating granuloma, and in this we see the naked granuloma because lymphocytic color is absent in it. Lymphocytic color is absent, that's why we called it naked granuloma. And after that we are studying about the healing. So in the healing process we have 2 types of intention, primary intention and secondary intention. In the primary intention, so in primary intention means that the surgeon will give the surgical incision which is very straight and clear regular margins. So surgical incision is the example of primary intention, in which the margins were seen, regular margins and clear margins were seen. And in the secondary intention we have the example is like road traffic accident. And in the primary intention we have surgical incision. So in secondary intention the wound is irregular and have irregular margins. So as we see here, the irregular margins were present, and in this there is increase of scar formation. So now here 2 questions were asked, like what is the hallmark of repair and which cell is responsible for wound contraction. So the most important cell which is responsible for wound contraction is myofibroblast. Remember this question, that the most important cells which is used for wound contraction is myofibroblast, and the hallmark of repair is granulation tissue. The hallmark of repair is granulation tissue. Remember this question also, that the hallmark of repair is granulation tissue. And in how we can identify that it is granulation tissue? Basically, in granulation tissue we see the lot of blood vessels in the microscopic picture, and we see the inflammatory cells were present there, and we also see the fibroblast also. So basically in granulation tissue we see the three things. The first one is the lots of blood vessels, second one is the inflammatory cells, and the third one is the fibroblast. So this is the microscopic picture, and we see that there are lot of blood vessels. See this one, this one, this one, here also, here also, here also, here also. We see a lot of central lumen which is red, and it means the central, if central lumen is red, it means that it is a blood vessel. So there are lot of blood vessels and lot of inflammatory cells as we see here, and the fibroblast. So this is about the hallmark of the repair, that is granulation tissue. Now after that, this we have to study about the events of wound healing. So for the events of wound healing, like what will happen on the first day, second day, and so on. So basically on the day 0 on which the wound is appear, on the day of 0, we platelets and fibrin, means blood clot factor, will come. So platelets and blood clot factor will seen on the day 0, and on the day 1 we see the blood clots and the acute inflammation cells, that is neutrophils, will arise at that particular area. So neutrophils will arise on day 1. Neutrophils will arise on day 1. On the day 2, blood clot plus neutrophils and 2 TWO, means T for thin epithelial layer. So there is thin epithelial layer also arise on the day 2. TWO2, T for thin epithelial layer. Thin epithelial layer will arise on day 2. After that, on day 3, macrophages, granulation tissue begins, and collagen deposition also begins. So on day 3, macrophages plus granulation and collagen tissue both will start begins. So on the day 5, first granulation tissue will maximum, and on the day 21 collagen will maximum. So how we can remember it? So this is the granulation tissue, this is the granulation tissue, this is the collagen. On the 3rd day both will start beginning, and on the 5th day, like 3 day, 5 day and 3 week, 3 5 3, 3 day, 5 day and 3rd week. On the 3rd day both granulation tissue and collagen fiber will start begins, and on the 5th day first granulation tissue is maximum, and on the 3rd week collagen tissue is maximum. So here is one note, that initially the collagen, there is collagen type 3, and on the later there is collagen type 1, because collagen type 1 is the strongest collagen. So initially there is collagen type 3, and later on there is collagen type 1, because collagen type 1 is the strongest collagen. Now we are studying about the wound strength. Basically at the end of 1st week there is 10% of repairing, and at the end of the 12th week there is 70% wound strength will come. At the end of 1st week there is 10%, and at the end of 12 week, approximate 3 months, there is 70% wound strength. But never ever there will be 100% wound strength will appear. So remember this, that never ever there will be 100% wound strength. Now the factors helping in healing. Which were the factors which help in the healing? So basically zinc and vitamin C will help in the healing process. Vitamin C and zinc will help in the healing process. Now what are the causes of delayed wound healing? So basically delayed wound healing, the causes were like, if there is deficiency of vitamin C or there is deficiency of zinc. Vitamin C deficiency like diabetes mellitus, and zinc deficiency steroid deficiency due to steroids, there is delayed wound healing. And the most common cause of delayed wound healing is infection, means there is some infection is ongoing, that's why there is delayed in wound healing. So remember it, most common cause is infection. Most common cause of delayed wound healing is infection, and delayed wound healing is due to deficiency of vitamin C and zinc. Now, if there is excessive wound healing means that there is more and more granulation tissue. If there is more and more granulation tissue, it means the excessive granulation tissue means that there is lot of fibroblast, lot of blood vessels, and if there is lot of blood vessels, then it will shows in microscopic picture. We see the proud flash red. We see the proud flash red. We'll see on the microscopic picture if there is excessive granulation tissue. And the second one is that if there is excessive scar forming. If excessive scar forming is there, there were two types like keloid and hypertrophic scars. So let's differentiate between keloid and hypertrophic scar. As we see in this photo, in this picture, there is keloid formation, and it have the scar basically will cross the margins of wound. As we see, it is in front of the pinna, and behind the pinna also arises the keloid. So keloid formation will arise, and it crosses the margins of wound. And this one is the hypertrophic scar, and in the hypertrophic scar it does not cross the margins of wound. As we see, it is in the straight line, and it will not cross the margins of wound, and keloid will cross the margins of wound. This is the difference, keloid versus hypertrophic scar. In keloid, the scar will cross the margin, and in the hypertrophic scar, the scar will not cross the margins of wound. And for the treatment of keloid, we basically give the injection of steroid. Intralesionally we give the injection of steroids, and surgery is not done in this case. Remember it, surgery is not done in this case. We give injection of steroid to shrink the keloid. Okay, that's all for the chronic inflammation chapter. I hope you all revise it with me. Thank you.